So we're going to be talking about the timeline from 1900 to the year 2000 of how Detroit evolved and how it became the city that it became today. Starting with the year 1900, Detroit was considered the 13th largest city in the U.S. with 285,704 residents. In the year 1901, that's when Detroit's Tigers baseball team formed. In the year 1902, Cadillac Automobile Company was in business. Wayne County Courthouse was built. In the year 1903, that's when Ford Motor Company business and the Purable Pottery business became about. And if you don't know what the Purable Pottery business is, it's a ceramic studio school over there on 125 East Jefferson Avenue. Also, the Board of Commerce was formed. 1904 was when Belle Isle Aquarium opened. In the year 1907, during this time, at this specific year, the area of Detroit was 41 square miles, and Detroit Auto Show began. 1909 was also when Ford Building was constructed. 1911 was when Chevrolet opened its first factory in Detroit, and this was a big deal because when this factory opened, it opened a lot of jobs for the people of Detroit, and it made a lot of people happy that they had jobs. In the year 1912, the Dime Building was constructed, otherwise known as the Chrysler Building in downtown Detroit off of Griswold Street. In 1913, the Broadway Strand Theater in downtown Detroit was also in business. 1914 was when the Detroit Institute of Arts was founded. 1950 was when Kiani Club was founded, and it was an international service club. 1916 was the year African Americans moved into the city of Detroit after the Great Migration. Not only does World War I end in 1918, but also the influenza epidemic became about, and it lasted from February 1918 to April 1920. It also affected 500 million people, with the death toll being 20 million. And with it affecting 500 million people at the time, that was like a third of the world's population. 1919 was when Orchestra Hall opened. 1920 was when Detroit became the fourth largest city in America. And then during this time, also the white community was pushing the African American community into black neighborhoods. The year 1920 was also when color-coded traffic lights were introduced, like the stop, green, yellow, go traffic lights. And then also the population was 993,078. 1921 was when Detroit Historical Society formed organizations in U.S. and Canada. Henry Ford was also really close to black ministers in the black churches in the year 1923. So with him being so close to them, it also provided a lot more opportunities for jobs and for almost like education purposes for the black community. 1904 was when Ambassador Cinema was in business, the Bull Building was constructed, and the Ossian Riot started. The Ossian Riots, also known as Ossian Street Riots, started because Ossian Sweet himself murdered a couple of people, and he was moving into some neighborhood, and the people in the neighborhood obviously had a problem with the murderer living in his house or living in the neighborhood, so they started retaliating and rioting in front of his house, which resulted in him shooting 4 bullets into the crowd and killing 4 people. 1927 was when the Detroit City Airport was opened and the Detroit Institute of Arts was built. 1928 was when the Detroit Zoo opened and the Fisher Building was built. In 1929, the Ambassador Bridge was completed, and also the Union Trust Building was built. Year 1930, Detroit's tunnel to Windsor was finished, and the population at this time was 1,568,662. 1935, the Workers' Labor Union was founded, and Ford Motor Company was the first to sign with them. In 1907, the Wager-Segal Housing Act was passed, and this provided public housing for those who needed. In 1940, the population at this time was 1,622,455, and in 1941, a lot of war production was happening. In 1943, that's when the Detroit riots happened, and it happened because the African Americans and whites were competing for factory jobs. 1950, the United Auto Workers signed with GM, and the population at this time was 1.85 million. In 1954, the City Council building, otherwise known as the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center, was built, and it was also named after the mayor of Detroit at that time. In 1955, Charles became the U.S. Rep for Michigan's 13th Congressional District. 1959 was when the Pavilion Apartments was built in Lafayette Park. 1960 was when Motown Records was in business. The Cobo Hall Convention was built and was opened, and the population at that time was 1,670,144. 1961 was when Jerome Cavanagh was elected mayor. 1963 was when the Great March to Freedom happened. 1964, the windshield wipers were invented. In 1965, the Wright Museum for African American History was built, and John Kayers was elected for Michigan's representatives for Michigan's 1st Congressional District. On July 23rd, one of the deadliest riots happened on 12th Street, and it was considered very, overwhelming and, violent because it had 943 killed, 342 injured, and 1,400 buildings were burned. Wayne County Community College opened, and Fisher Highway was opened. 1968 was when Focus Hope was founded by William T. Cunningham. 1970 was when the Detroit Science Center was opened. In 1970 was when the Detroit Science Center was founded, and the population at that time was 1,511,482. In the year 1973, Coleman Young was elected Detroit's first black mayor, and he held this position for 20 years. 1977 was when the Renaissance Center was built. In the year 1980, Saddam Hussein made a large donation to a Detroit church, which caused them to get a key to the city of Detroit. And also at that time, the population was 1,203,339. 1987 was when Pope John Paul II visited Detroit, and the Detroit's People Movers automobile was in business. 1988 was when the Bel Air Cinema was in business. 1993 was when One Detroit Center was built. In the year 1995, during the month of July, that's when the newspaper strike began. In the year 1996, during the month of November, that's when casinos were opened. In the year 2000, that's when Comerica Park was also opened.